You're listening to episode 148 of the D6 podcast.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect the church and home. Ron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Is it time to share with our listeners what you have done to your face? I think they need to know this.
Well,
I wish sometimes that we had like a live feed where they could see you, but you did this.
Because it's my face. That's why we don't have a live feed.
That's awesome. Well, you over the winter.
Yes.
Do you do this every winter, grow a beard?
I do. And you and I actually talked about that, or almost talked about it on our previous podcast, because we were pre-recording and we said, by the time it comes out, you'll shave it off. Because after the first week of December, our board always meets on the first week of December. I save up my vacation, my PTO time, and I usually take off for like a 2-week period of time right after the board, and then we're into the Christmas break.
Yes.
And so I get 3 weeks where I'm off, and I just grow the beard.
Who wants to shower and shave?
That's
Two
exactly
weeks?
right. I have a blast, and I usually wear it back one day at work just to let people get kicks out of seeing me with a beard, and then I shave it off the second day.
Yes.
And my
you
wife
came in for a podcast recording, and I got to see the beard.
That's right, you did, because we were really playing some catch up going into the year. And you started to announce, "Hey, Ron's got a beard," and I'm like, "No, it'll be gone by the time this thing actually airs." And my wife likes it, and she just kind of voiced her, "Hey, I really like it." I'm like, you know what? That's the opinion that matters to me.
There it is.
I got a few accolades from other people, and while I appreciate that made me feel good, the one that matters is my wife, Pam.
Because let's be honest, Ron, by the time you're married, as long as we've been married,
that's
anything you can do that kind of gets a thumbs up from your wife as far as the looks.
That's right.
You'll do it whatever.
I need the wife points, okay? I can go for all of those I can get.
So what that means, fair listeners of the D6 podcast, is that now both of your co-hosts are bearded studs.
I was going to say, I've always admired Jeremy's beard, and if you've ever seen a picture of him, he sports it well. I wish mine looked half as good as he does. I'm enjoying mine, but he's man.
So here's the question.
He's always rocked it.
Can we take a picture of our beards together and tweet it out on your Twitter handle today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can do that.
Let's do it. We're going to tweet the beards.
We will do that.
You guys will be able to see it at the Ron Hunter.
That's right, at Ron Hunter. Yeah.
There it is, at Ron Hunter. All right, so hey, I wish we could spend our whole time talking about beards today because I love it. But we've got some great guests. We've got David Thomas. He's going to be talking to us about parenting boys. So this is going to be one of those episodes you can send out to the parents in your ministry. It's going to be super encouraging. And then also, Shirley is going to be talking about grandparenting. But what I want to talk about, Ron, is the D6 conference because we've got a big price break. We love to talk about the price breaks for the D6 conference because that's when you can really help bring your team. We talk about bringing team, whether that's volunteer or paid staff, whatever.
Yes.
And the way to bring the team is to catch the discount. So before that goes away, you can still save $80 on each registration. That's a great deal. So,
it's huge. It's huge.
So talk to us about the conference this year. Get us a little bit amped up about why we're excited. I know there's a lot of fun things to talk about when it comes to the conference this year. And then kind of help us understand how we can grab that price break.
Right. People pick conferences for various reasons. Number one, they often pick it based upon what they can take away from it. 2, they pick it based upon the speakers who are going to be
Yes.
featured there. And number 3, they pick it based on location.
Yeah, see
So-
if they can add kind of a little bit of vacation
That's right.
to it.
That's right. And so, if you're picking out Des Moines, Iowa versus, San Diego, sorry, people in Iowa, you're probably going to lose out,
Mm-hmm.
And without a doubt, we probably shouldn't pick it that way, but it is a natural.
Human.
Yeah,
It's the
it
human
is human.
condition, Ron.
That's right. My pastor said something one time, and he's written a number of books, and so when he speaks with authority. And I cringed at when he said this at a conference. He said he was talking to all pastors. He was talking to a group of leaders. He said, you need to pick out a conference that's in a really cool city and go to the conference and just skip the conference and just take a hiatus. I thought, you're kidding me. I'm like,
no,
that's
great
horrible
advice.
stewardship.
Great advice.
Don't do that if you're spending the
Yes,
church's money. Is all
do
I'm
that.
going to say.
Do that.
No, but you do need to be able to relax at conferences. This is a chance to be
Yes.
ministered to, and sometimes going and skipping a session is not bad. Don't skip it on D6, but I get it.
One of my favorite conference memories is in the opening session. The host of the conference introduced a couple that said this couple came to our conference last year and skipped a whole bunch of the sessions, and here's the result. And then the couple lifted up a little baby.
And I remember that. You're right. That's exactly right.
Anyway.
So when you pick this, here's our theme. Here's our takeaway for you. Our theme is recalibrate. And recalibrate is what we do when we want to reposition, when we want to adjust, when we want to slightly change a direction, or we want to dial in. Those are all synonyms for recalibrate.
That's great.
And every one of us can recalibrate our family ministry a bit. I don't care if you've been at it 10 years, 15 years, or you're brand new to it. It's time to recalibrate. And when people come to our conference, they learn from the speakers, they learn from peers. They learn from the people in the room because of the atmosphere. That is why so many times we learn from online conferences, and that is a growing segment, but nothing replaces that shoulder to shoulder being in the trenches and getting a chance to be in the atmosphere and in the moment. Second, our speakers. It's early in the year, and we continue to trickle out. Even though we've got agreements from speakers who are going to be speaking, we don't just throw them all on the website at the same time. And we have people like Pam Tebow, mom of Tim Tebow, that's going to be speaking about, how do we raise spiritual champions in that way? We're going to have, now here's somebody that I would be willing to bet that is less known. I believe one day she will be very well known. She's the daughter of one of our well-known authors, couples actually, Rob and Amy Reno. Mm-hmm. Their daughter's name is Lissy Reno. Lissy went on a D6 tour with us last year to multiple cities, and we gave her a topic, and the topic had to do with how does a teenager deal with living in a Christian home and interpreting what parents are trying to get them to hear and learn and do. How is the teen interpreting that?
Wow.
And she spoke to the parents and to the ministry leaders saying, here's how your teen is thinking about those issues.
Wow. It's almost like information from the other side of the conversation, which we basically is non-existent.
That's right.
So cool to have that perspective.
That's
How cool.
right. I view her as a teenage Google translator. When I
Nice.
travel to other countries, I'm using the Google Translator to understand that she's the teenage Google Translator.
Nice.
She helps us see how the teenagers are responding to that, and that's going to be her topic. We also have Jimmy Myers. He's the CEO of the Timothy Center, and he's going to be speaking, and he's part of this whole recalibrate theme. I'll tell you more about this on another episode. Jim Weidman.
He's back. That's so good.
Jim Weidman's back, a godfather of children's ministry to some degree. That's how we've named him in the past. We've actually asked him, while he's a children's pastor's guru, he's in that season of life where he is doing grandparenting, and he's going to speak on that topic. Russell Moore, he's got a new book he's released on family and family ministry. Jefferson Bethke, when we think about Jefferson, this is the funny thing about our speakers. I ask people, hey, have you heard of them? It depends on what generation you're in as to how you've heard them or what gender you are. I remember the year that we brought in Eric Metaxas, hardly any female recognized who he was, but every male couldn't wait to hear him, by and large. Jefferson Bethke, I think, is a generational. He is to the people under age 40 what Emerson Eggerichs has been to us, or Rainey, or any one of these. He's that guy that's engaging marriages on such a powerful way in today's culture. Jim Putman, very well known for discipleship. Jeff Wallace is back. We have Richard Ross. I can go right on down the list of our featured speakers. And then lastly, the location, Orlando. This is a place that
it's new.
It is. It's new to us. It'll be the first time that we will be there. If I could plan this perfectly for you, I'd say bring your staff in for a couple of days before the conference, do a little bit of planning, a little bit of chemistry building, then fly in your families. Let them attend the conference with you. Have the team building go on during the conference. Find little pit groups. Find a room to get away to, decompress what you've heard in with your group and your staff. And then at the follow-on, keep your families there for 2 or 3 days and have a fun time with your family.
Sounds perfect.
That's a win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so you need to come, and if you do register now, it's your last chance to save $80 off the registration. Every time we hit a price break, obviously the prices go up the closer we get to the event. We love being able to plan for you being there. It reduces our stress, reduces our areas for, okay, we need these amount of rooms, so the earlier, that's why we give discounts. And the cool thing is, you don't even have to know the names of the people coming. So if you're listening, you can go onto our website right now and hold 10 slots, commit to them, and you can fill in the names later, which, by the way, that's how I would say 80% of our registrations occur. People immediately commit to a group of people coming. They fill in the names as they get closer to the event.
So if you want to do that, go to d6conference.com. But now let's talk about David Thomas. David Thomas is a counselor in Nashville, an author, and he's got a great book, and we'll be talking about that during the interview. I won't take the time now to do that. But just simply, David Thomas, he's been a counselor to my son and has helped my family very personally. So I love this man, and we're excited to hear from him. And then after that, we'll be hearing from Chris Shirley. But let's begin with David Thomas. After the break, we'll be hearing from him on Is Our Wild Thing Boy on Track? We'll talk to you after the break.
Since 2009, the D6 Conference has empowered thousands of church leaders to embrace family ministry and strengthen the connection between church and home. Reaching that many church leaders, think of how many homes and communities across the world have been impacted in the last 9 years. My family, like yours, is among them. As a team here at D6, we've had the privilege of being in Dallas, Louisville, and Greensboro, plus 5 other countries. So each year we prayerfully consider the best place to host this growing international gathering, and we have a big announcement to make. After thoughtful consideration and prayer, we are excited to announce the D6 Conference in 2019 will be hosted in beautiful Orlando, Florida. Did you hear me? Orlando, Florida. The entire team at D6 cannot imagine a more iconic city where you can see families of all ages come together, the very basis of generational discipleship. Imagine debriefing your discipleship strategy on Tom Sawyer Island in the heart of Magic Kingdom. Or take a day at Universal Studios to dream of what your church could do in family ministry. The conference will be hosted at the state-of-the-art Marriott World Center. You gotta check this place out. It's both beautiful and offers fun for your entire family ministry team. So come spend some time away from your daily routine in an affordable city and convention center designed for your family. The D6 Conference is the conversation, Orlando is the venue, but your team brings the chemistry. The D6 Conference always provides world-class learning, networking, and access to family ministry resources. And now we get to do that with you in a brand new way. We can't think of a better place to host the D6 Conference. So lock the dates in your calendar, and we'll see you and your team here in Orlando in 2019.
Hey, everybody, you are going to enjoy David Thomas. And is your last name LMSW?
No. Just some crazy letters.
Let me see. Love, marriage, So wow. Love marriage so wow. No? What does that stand for after your name?
That's the most beautiful explanation of my letters. Thank you for giving them life in that way. They're not nearly as exciting in their own definition.
What do they stand for?
They stand for Licensed Master Social Worker. Just a little bit about my graduate training, but nothing worth remembering. I have a therapy dog that I work with who has more letters behind his name than me, so I don't get big head about any of that.
He's the director of family counseling at Daystar Counseling in Nashville, Tennessee. He's the co-author of 8 books, including the best-selling Wild Things, The Art of Nurturing Boys, which I highly recommend. He's a frequent guest on national television and podcasts and has been featured in publications and speaks across the country. He recently completed Are My Kids on Track? The 12 emotional, social, and spiritual milestones your child needs to reach. And he's a husband and father of 3. Best part, right?
Best part. That's what I'd brag on right there.
Ready to get home to him, aren't you?
I'm excited to see him.
Oh, man. So thanks for being at D6, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
Wild Things has been huge for me in my house. And you have, I love to, every time I can, thank you publicly for what you've done for my son. He's been one of your clients, and you have spoken into his life. I just shared with David off air that his investment in my son is paying off now that he's 13 in huge ways. So thank you for that.
I'm a huge fan of his.
So, and you were the ones when Are My Kids on Track, when that was coming out, you kind of, before it came out, kind of was explaining to us the concept of it, that it's basically like going to see a pediatrician when your kids are younger and they give you those physical milestones, right?
Mm-hmm. That's it. It's like a well visit with a pediatrician, but that visit in that context really being about our kids, primarily about our kids' physical development. And part of why this book felt so important to us is, if we think about how a pediatrician oversees our kids' physical development, how educators will oversee their cognitive development, there's not really an arena, a context where we're thinking as much or asking some of those same kinds of questions about our kids' emotional and social development. And clearly those are important threads, really important threads. It's out of that place right now that they're operating as brothers and sisters and sons and daughters and friends. It's out of that thread of their development eventually that they're going to operate as husbands and wives themselves, mothers and fathers, friends and coworkers. And so to really to focus in and track with that part of their development felt so incredibly important. And we wanted to make that feel less overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we took 4 emotional, 4 social, and 4 spiritual milestones and defined what they are, and then talked about how we help the kids we love progress toward those. And in it, we branch off. That book I co-authored with my dear friends and colleagues, Sissy Goff and Melissa Trevathan. Sissy was just with you all. And what we do, Sissy and I jump off from each of the milestones and talk about what are the stumbling blocks that boys face and the stumbling blocks that girls face, and then what are the building blocks unique to boys and unique to girls to help them get there.
Love it. Okay, so then if it's okay with you, I did the same thing with Sissy, and I want people to be able to compare and contrast. But let's take Wild Things and Are My Kids on Track and kind of bring them together and talk about boys being on track throughout their journey. And if you're cool with it, then let's start with a 5-year-old boy, which makes me smile just thinking about
me too.
A 5-year-old boy. How do I know that they're on track? If they don't kill anybody?
It's where I love that you're asking specific questions about the ages, because it's where we really can think strategically based on the role of development and then based on these milestones, what would that look like in that moment? So, for example, I call a 5-year-old boy in Wild Things, he's in what I call the lover stage. And he is tender. In fact, it's the moment where I say to parents, if I could ever freeze a boy in his development, I'd freeze him right there, somewhere between 5 and 8, because boys are so tender, they're imaginative. It's one of my favorite moments developmentally to have conversations with boys about faith. And so what's happening in terms of his spiritual development that we talk about is he's moving toward the milestone of foundation, just figuring out what he believes, what's true, who God is. And so when that imaginative part intersects with that hunger to figure out who God is, it really is my favorite moment to talk with boys about God. And I encourage parents, make sure you got a copy of the Jesus Storybook Bible in your house. Actually, I wish every parent had a copy of that. And when his little mind wraps around those stories like Jonah and the whale and David and Goliath, and he begins to understand the power of God, the love of God out of those beautiful stories, it is an incredible intersection. And so there's a hunger there with 5-year-old boys that I wish he could hold on to well into adolescence, but he will lose, and we'll talk a little bit about that unique moment. But that would be some of what that intersection looks like at 5.
I love it. Now, what about a 10-year-old boy?
A 10-year-old boy is in what I call the individual stage, and that's also developmentally a moment that we define as the age of awareness. So he is more aware of himself in proximity to his peers than he's ever been. It's where I'll have 9 to 12-year-old boys sitting on my couch in my office, and they'll be telling a story, and they're not even aware they're adding in these details. They'll be like, and then John, he's the most athletic guy in the grade, or he's the fastest guy in the grade, and they can't help but notice those things. So that's going on that would make him a bit more self-conscious. This kind of the pre-adolescence window, beginning to think about himself in ways that he can't think about others or the world around him in quite the same ways. Now, he's got a foot in adolescence, but he's got a foot in boyhood. He's still straddling those two places. So there is still a lot of opportunity where we can talk about faith and who God is in ways that do capture him. In fact, in terms of the milestone and Are My Kids on Track, we talk about that being the season of identity. And there again, that so intersects with what's going on developmentally. I even talk in the Wild Things class about how he's in an identity formation stage and just figuring out more of who he is. Again, measuring that against those around him. So that particular milestone, we talk a lot about just kind of helping kids get rooted. Melissa, our boss, wrote that chapter, and she talks about the importance of dailiness of faith, just the going along that Deuteronomy 6 talks about in a beautiful way, and how that's where we are helping kids make connections about God and faith in remarkable ways, just in the everyday.
Okay, so we've gone from 5 to 10. Now let's head to middle school. Do 14
We're
years.
getting into the scary territory now, aren't we?
A 14-year-old boy. Let's, talk about hygiene, first of all.
Yes. You know this space well, don't you? My goodness. And it is, most every developmental theorist would say, and you're living this reality, it is the most complicated moment of a boy's life. It's the most disruptive stretch of development. There'll never be a point where we as males feel as unsteady, as insecure, as uncomfortable in our own skin. So he's in what I call in Wild Things the wanderer stage. And he's experiencing a biological tsunami on a daily basis. 13 to 14 is a peak growth spurt for boys, so his body's been hijacked by hormones. And so all of that's going on, which would understandably stand in the way of a lot of things. Hygiene being one, connection with parents being another, connection with God being another. Now, here's the great thing happening in that moment developmentally in terms of the spiritual milestones. This is when we talk about kids moving toward the milestone of mercy. And it's the first moment where on an advanced level, we begin to understand as people that we mess up. And we talk in the book about we can only understand our need for Jesus to the degree that we understand that we need him. We mess up. We're a mess. And so the thing I love about adolescence, there's a lot of things I love about adolescence, but in that moment, that complicated moment, is they understand that for the first time on a whole new level. They understand that they're a mess and they need something more than they're capable of. And so that's when I love ushering kids toward the truth of Titus 3, 4, and 5. I love that verse. It says, when the kindness and love of God our Savior appeared, he saved us not because of righteous things we'd done, but because of his mercy. And they can begin to understand that on a whole different level. So I talk a lot with kids like how to make that practical, that spiritual milestone. I talk a lot about that, well-known quote of be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a hard battle, and asking kids those real specific questions like, who in your life right now do you think is fighting a hard battle? Like, what is that battle? What would it look like practically tomorrow when you go to school, like to be kind to that person? in the midst of that battle, and having them define those things in really concrete, tangible ways. So that's a conversation I love to have with boys in that stretch to make that more real to them.
Okay, 17.
17. I love working with 17-year-old boys. I really do. I would have to say.
Now, David, you've loved all of them.
I have loved all of them. I have. Outside of the lover stage, the end of the wander stage, heading into what I call the warrior stage, is another sweet spot for boys. And it's still complicated in its own right, but boys are later than girls to develop abstract thinking. And by this point, he's got a little bit more of it on his side, and so he can see the grays of this world. It's where we talk about the spiritual milestone of meaning, and that is so in keeping with what I see going on with boys developmentally. Part of why I call it the warrior stage is he is ready to head into the world. He wants to know that the work of his hands matters. I talk all throughout boy development how boys crave power and purpose. They want to feel strong and courageous, and they want to feel like they have a purpose in this world. I think that's true of us as men. And I love the hunger that's stirring in a 17, 18-year-old boy to find that. And so that's a point in a boy's development where I don't think we can do enough service, enough outreach, enough missions trips, enough opportunities where he begins to see the work of my hands matters. Like I just did something that had some degree of impact in another person's life. I can't usher a boy toward too much of that at 17, 18 as he's moving into that warrior stage. I talk a lot with parents of college-age boys to say what happens in the summers of his college years, in my mind, is every bit as important as what's happening at college. Like, I want you to think strategically about internships and missions trips and opportunities that enrich his life spiritually, developmentally, in some really important ways in the warrior stage.
I love that. All right, so there's a couple of things. What if our boy is not on track? How do we handle that?
I'm glad you asked that, because I think it's potentially the first thing that parents wonder or worry about when they even see the title of our book.
Yeah.
I'll shoot straight with you. We didn't love the title.
Yes, I said that too.
Yeah, we didn't. I like it in terms of its clarity in some ways, but I don't want to create panic or fear in parents when they read that, because what we immediately say in the introduction of that book is where these milestones are different than the physical milestones is, you and I know, the pediatrician said, are we crawling? Are we walking? Are we hitting these points at very specific moments in our kids' development? These emotional, social, and spiritual milestones are different in that our kids are going to be progressing toward them all throughout their development. So no child has developed mastery of empathy by 12 years of age. So in response to your question, I would say to parents, if you feel like he's behind, it's okay. Because no one's going to hit these milestones by their 18th birthday. They're going to be progressing toward, should be progressing toward. The other thing I would say to that parent is see these milestones like muscles. And we know that some kids just come out of the womb and some of their muscles are stronger, more developed, and some are weaker. But we can develop weaker muscles. We can flex those. We just have to labor a little bit longer with some kids. And so, you know, as a parent of twins myself, here I have two boys, same gender, same parents, grew up in the same household, go to the same school, and their progression has been completely different. Some of them, one of them is way ahead in some of these emotional milestones, some way ahead in some of the social. They're moving at their own pace. So I'd remind parents in response to that question of that.
All right, so I think our world, and today you don't have to watch the news or read headlines long before you realize we have reaped a little bit of the fruit of not educating boys about the heart and soul of a girl. Because just that, that's just true.
I agree.
So how do we make sure as parents of boys that we teach them about the heart and soul of a girl?
I am so thankful to get to talk about that with you, because I do feel as strongly as you do about that. And there is obviously so much going on in our world around us that we can use, in my mind, for a healthy conversation with the boys we love. And, you know, I talked a few minutes ago about how boys hunger for power and purpose. I think it's great to talk with our boys about how I believe that girls hunger to be chosen. You know, when we think about her heart and soul, that is a deep desire, I think, that's woven into the heart and soul of a girl, and I think it gives our sons an opportunity to think about what that looks like within their friendships with girls in elementary and middle school, and girls that they might date in high school and college and marry as adults. And what does it look like to know that to be true about the girls they're in relationship with, to honor that, to respect that, and to cherish that? What does it look like for us to talk about how to use, going back to the hunger for power, how to use our power for good in this world, and the reality being that there are plenty of men in this world, it's all over the news, who have used their power to abuse women. And what has that looked like, and where can we do something different and redemptive in this world in response to that? So honestly, I think rather than avoiding that conversation, which is what we want to do sometimes as parents, I would say let's use it. It's right there in front of us. Let's talk. That feels redemptive to me. It feels really redemptive in the lives of our boys.
Well, I cannot let you go. I have a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old boy, and we need to talk about Fortnite. Because, man, I don't think I've ever seen anything just take over the world of a certain age range of boys in my life. It's become so crazy. Mm-hmm. Fun game, great game, but you wrote a really cool article about it, which on your blog on raisingboysandgirls.com, which every minister or parent listening to this needs to go check out and share. But there's not a lot of people writing on this, because you can kind of get. I was very proud of you when I saw it come out, because I'm like, there's varying parental opinions on this, and he might get slammed on both sides. And
indeed,
and it's just a game, but there's a lot of strong opinions about it. But there's a lot of parents when we're sitting at birthday parties and we're chilling while the kids play, we're usually talking about sports or Fortnite. And so let's talk about Fortnite. Tell us about the article. Share about kind of your thoughts on that as far as how it affects the boys, and how we as parents should what should we be doing? Give us some guidance.
It is the most spoken word in my office these days, and it is. It's one of the biggest things going on in boy culture, and what I would say first in response to that is, like every game, like everything that captivates the boys we love, I want us to know about it. I think it's important for us as parents to be informed about the things, and the temptation would be, I'm just going to slam the door shut and not going to let that into my house. And that may be a choice that you make, and I will respect that choice if that's where you land. And you're right, I knew when I wrote that article I was going to make some people furious and some people glad I wrote some things about it. But
thanks for writing it.
Well, at the end of the day, it felt important. It is a part of their world. And I would say to parents, there's going to be something else. There'll be a new Fortnite 5 years from now. It won't be the game at that point, but there'll be another one in its place. And what I would say, most importantly in response to your question, because I highlighted some guidelines in that article of some things to consider as parents. In fact, I'll confess, I do it in the article. I piggybacked on a great conversation I had with a single mom in my office who I thought had put some amazing parameters around it. But what I would want to say even more than that is, think about what we've just talked about with your son. And then think about what I believe gaming often accomplishes or tries to accomplish for a boy. So whether it's Fortnite or any other game, that's where I think we've got to spend some time thinking. And at the end of the day, what I do think can happen is that a boy can get a taste of competence or mastery, of autonomy or independence, and of connection and relatedness. And so if we think about those three things, accomplishing some of that for a boy in playing video games, whether it's Fortnite or Call of Duty or anything else, those desires exist in him. Mm-hmm. So rather than just saying, it's bad, you shouldn't play that, I want us to be talking about those realities with our son, mm-hmm. and honoring that. Like, I get that you want that. I think God put that in you. That's part of that hunger for power and purpose. Now, you are going to get a false sense of that, a false sense of mastery in playing a game. It's going to feel satisfying in the moment. In the same way, we were just laughing together about going to the movies last night. I ate a big old box of Milk Duds and a big bag of gummy bears. I'll confess that. And in that moment, I was convincing myself that would feel satisfying. And it was for a moment. But I woke up feeling crappy this morning. It didn't. It's not sustenance. And so that's what I want to say to boys. Like, it's triggering some dopamine in your brain. It's creating a sense of that for you. But it's not the real deal. And so my job as your parent is to help you figure out how to accomplish that. Where can you feel a sense of competence in this world, a sense of your own strength? So that's where I want parents to go.
Yep, and you guys, if you want to see that article again, you can go to raisingboysandgirls.com. I don't have the name of the article here, but I promise you'll find it. It's pretty good, pretty easy to find on there. And thank you again for everything, for Wild Things, for Are My Kids on Track, and even for Fortnite articles. Just thank you for being a voice for those of us who are trying to raise boys into incredible men of God.
Thank you for having me. I love talking with you again.
Scripture and modern-day research attests to this truth. When one generation commits to and engages in the discipleship of another generation, people of all ages know Jesus and become more like him. This commitment requires us to say goodbye to the myopic focus on the next generation and instead broaden our view to every generation. Every generation. Moms, dads, grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, kindergartners and middle school students, college freshmen and newlyweds, each one awakened to Jesus Christ and living out a vibrant faith with one another. We invite you to adopt this focus at the D6 Conference, a family ministry event built on the Deuteronomy 6 philosophy of generational discipleship. You will experience 3 days of strategy, resources, and action steps to help move your church forward together. Discover what's in store at d6conference.com.
Well, our thanks go out to David Thomas. That's not the first time we've interviewed him. He's been such a great contributor to the conference and to our podcast. And just, he's the kind of guy you're not going to ever throw him off. I think I could ask him just about any question, and he'll be able to
react. Yeah.
Definition of a distinguished gentleman, just a fine man. Thank you, David, for being with us. We really appreciate it. His partner in crime will be with us next week, Sissy Golf. Mm-hmm. But for now, let's jump in and listen to Chris Shirley as he kind of talks about grandparenting. I'll just do a little bit of a setup. You guys hopefully know this by now, that in the last few years, the idea of adding grandparents into the family ministry conversation has caught so much momentum. I remember when I first interviewed someone on this, I thought, well, this is nice. We have one person to represent grandparenting, and I kind of thought they would be the Larry Fowler. Yeah. I thought they would be the representative, but every year we continue to have a new voice, and Chris is just another one of those voices, and I love that we are giving more and more attention to this because there is so much opportunity in grandparenting.
That's right. And his book addresses that's the reason why he wrote a book on family ministry in the local church. And as a result, one of those chapters features that, and he's gotten so much traction from that. So you need to take a look at the book. You need to dive deeper into this, not only from a grandparenting angle, but that whole family ministry item. He's the program director for the Masters of Arts in Discipleship at the Graduate School of Ministry at Dallas Baptist University. And so he is leading that whole institution in a renewed effort towards a multi-tiered family ministry approach.
All right, let's take a listen to Chris Shirley. Hey, I want to introduce you guys to Chris Shirley, one of the newest authors at Randall House, and we are excited to interview you. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. Good to be here.
Now, you shared with me before we got on air that your voice is a little bit off today, and you sound a little bit like that guy from Boys to Men who used to be the bass in the group.
Oh, yes. In my generation, I would say one of the Oak Ridge Boys.
Fair enough. We just showed our generational differences.
Yeah, we did,
I like that.
That's great.
So you serve as program director for the Master of Arts in Discipleship at the Graduate School of Ministry at Dallas Baptist University. Holy smokes.
Wow, that's long, isn't it?
I know. My goodness. But prior to that, you were at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. I'm a graduate, where he taught in the discipleship and family ministry area. Cool. Dr. Shirley has also served for over 20 years in Christian camping local churches in North Carolina and Texas. Which state do you like better? You're on the spot right now.
I am not saying.
No, come on. Okay.
No, I'm in North Carolina. Now, the reason why I would say Texas is because we raised our kids there.
Nice.
And both of our kids went to Texas A&M.
Oh, Aggies.
So, Giga Maggies. Yeah.
Hey, I lived there for a while and loved it as well. It's got its own thing, you know. It's not Southern, it's not Northern, it's just Texas.
Right. Exactly.
All right, so we're blessed to have you on our panel this year at D6. You've been speaking with us at the conference, and you're going to be talking about really two subjects while you're here, discipleship and grandparenting.
Right.
So let's talk first about discipleship. So can you talk about the emphasis this program has on practically educating to transform lives? What does that mean?
Right. Well, one of the emphases that we have at DBU is providing practical training. We have 36-hour degrees, ministry-focused degrees, and so we have a short window of time in which to train our students. So 18 hours of that is theological training, and 18 hours of it is ministry focus, where we really dig in, lean into the practical competencies they're going to need to be effective on the field.
Good. So in modern day church, do you feel like discipleship is overcomplicated or overprogrammed, or what are some of the challenges that you've seen in discipleship in churches?
I guess perhaps I would say overcomplicated, because we don't realize that we have all the tools at hand already. First and foremost, I mean, the Holy Spirit is there to begin with, and so that's the primary tool for sanctification. But then trying to relegate discipleship to another program or another aspect or another facet of the church that we have to program for, as opposed to seeing it as the umbrella for all we do.
Yeah.
So whether we're in worship or on the mission field or in fellowship with one another in our small groups or doing personal ministry somewhere, whatever we're doing in the church, it's all about making disciples. And so it becomes more complicated when we relegate it to one specific program or aspect or area of the church.
I can so empathize with that. I think I'm going to use a word overused, but discipleship has got an organic nature to it, right?
Right.
But then as the church, we're kind of called to organize the organic. It's hard to organize organic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's kind of the whole point.
But it forces us, I think, to do some, well, going on Kyle's earlier talk this morning on intentionality. You know, that we're intentional about everything that we do, from the worship service to the small groups to youth ministry, children's ministry, whatever we're doing, we have to look at it intentionally with the question, how are we making disciples through this particular program or service or group or whatever we're doing? We have to look at it through the disciple-making lens.
So what's one of the major pitfalls that churches encounter as they try to make disciples? What are some of the mistakes they're making?
Okay. Well, I'm going to quote an author by the name of Bill Hull, who has written profusely in the area of discipleship. And his latest book is called Discipleship and Conversion. And there's a quote in there that rocked my world when I read it. It said, the gospel we preach and teach determines the disciples we make. And so if we don't first understand that the gospel we are promoting within our church is creating a particular type of disciple, then we're not going to have a target by which to plan. Let me give you an example of this. In his book, he points to a very familiar gospel within our churches, our line of churches, the forgiveness-only gospel. If all we're trying to do is preach and teach people to come down an aisle and make a decision at a particular time in their life, then what does that say about the type of disciples we're going to make? It means that we're going to be making disciples who see anything beyond that as optional.
Wow.
Once I got my ticket, once I made that prayer, once I did that deed at that particular time, that's it. Now that's pivotal and it's important and it's central to the gospel, but there is an extension that moves beyond that time to what Jesus said, follow me. And if we're not following him after that point in time, then we're not fulfilling the gospel. And so he points to the idea of the kingdom gospel. as being the more authentic understanding of the gospel, where we preach and teach Jesus crucified, resurrected, ascended, living in us today, but also the necessity to follow after him and what that means.
Yeah.
In terms of learning how to live in the kingdom. In fact, that's my definition of discipleship, is learning how to live in the kingdom of God. And that's in every day and every way.
I love that definition. And sometimes you listen to the way a church presents discipleship over time, and sometimes it can in some settings, not every, but in some settings it can come across as they're mostly interested in sin management and behavioral issues. Like it feels like those sometimes are the topics versus what you just suggested, right? I mean, we can get into that pretty quickly in this area of discipleship and make it more about behavior, right?
Yeah, that would be more of a therapeutic gospel.
Okay.
That particular idea rocked my world, but also I see the necessity for us to be able to describe in vivid terms an authentic disciple for people in our church. I think until they see a picture of it, until they understand, okay, this is what this means, and this is who I am to be. And in particular, a greater understanding that the disciple has got every bit of Jesus that he is or she will ever have right now within you.
Wow.
It's just that we're not living that out. So discipleship is not trying to get to Jesus. It's understanding that we are already there, Ephesians 2, and we're already there, okay, at living in him, and we spend our life living out that identity and that reality as his disciple.
Okay, so let's move to another form of discipleship that you're here to discuss a little bit, which is grandparenting.
Sure.
Are you a grandparent?
I am a grandparent.
Proud to show me pictures later of your.
Well, if you come to my session later on,
you have pictures in your session.
Right, you'll see my grandchildren in glorious color. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Wow.
And so I'm at the beginning stages of that, but I guess I qualify.
And we've had more than one guest remind us this year about generational discipleship, and that Deuteronomy 6 is an invitation to parents and grandparents.
Right.
What are you going to be sharing in your breakout on grandparenting?
Well, I'm going to be talking about one of the chapters in my book, Family Ministry in the Church, in which I talk about equipping grandparents to be disciple makers. And that's what I'll be focusing on. What is their role, and how can they become a part of the team?
What does that mean, become part of the team?
Well, I believe that it takes a church to make a disciple, but it also takes a family to make a disciple as well. And parents need help. If we're relegating the entire process on parents, saying that it's up to you, then I think we're misguided.
Yeah.
Because not only do parents have the primary responsibility, but then they have an extended family within the church to help them in the process of it. But they've also got an extended family of grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc., that need to be a part of that as well. And so I'm focusing on the role of grandparents in that process.
Okay, so you mentioned a new book. I need to hear more about it. Tell me about your new book.
All right. Family Ministry and the Church came about as, I guess, a recognition that we had not had a book written in quite a while for church leaders to see the holistic picture of family ministry beyond simply the equipping of parents. And Charles Sell wrote a book called Family Ministry in the 80s. Diana Garland wrote one called Family Ministry, A Comprehensive Guide in the 90s. And then that's, from that point forward, we've had nothing that church leaders and also seminaries and colleges could pick up to train leaders about what it means to not only equip parents to be spiritual leaders, but also to see the family ministry potential in the various ministries and aspects of church life. Creating that family equipping church that we're talking about it from is it bow to stern? I'm not a ship guy, so yeah. From
Sounds
first
good
to
to me.
last, yeah.
Oh, and yes, first to last, now with you.
Yeah.
And this book is available through Randall House, right?
Right, yeah.
And so they can go to d6family.com to grab it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hey, listen, thank you so much for being with us. We've been with Chris Shirley, and he has been is here at D6 talking about discipleship and grandparenting. He has a great new book. You can grab it at d6family.com. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I think you understand why Dr. Shirley can make such a compelling case for family ministry. He does have a heart for local church ministry. That is his background. While he's in education now, his heart is about launching ministry leaders into the local churches who not only do local church well, but do family ministry well. That's his heart. So thank you, Dr. Shirley, for that incredible challenge for us. Next week.
Oh, hold up.
What?
I have something I need you to do for me.
What's that?
I didn't prepare you for this.
Uh-oh.
And I know every time I say that, it just
churns right inside. Yep.
Could you hand me your phone? See, a man of integrity never worries when he hands his phone. Could you unlock it?
I was going to say, yeah, I don't mind because you can't unlock it. only this
could
ugly
you
face
unlock
can.
your
Only my ugly face can unlock this phone.
Perfect. Okay, hold on one second. I don't even know how to operate this. Can you open the camera?
I can open the camera. Yes, there we go.
All right, I promised a beard selfie, and we're doing this right now on air.
I pulled off my sweater. All I have on is my T-shirt right now.
Oh, and it shows the muscles. Just flex during the picture.
Just flex.
I'll count to 3 so you can hold your flex. 1, 2. All right, it is done, guys. We'll be tweeting out that beard picture so you can see it. Hey, listen, d6conference.com. Don't forget to grab the deal that they have on the price break so you can bring a team with you. Thank you for listening. Next week, now we can talk about next week. David Thomas kind of has a writing partner and a speaking partner who handles talking about raising girls, and we're going to kind of basically do the same interview for parents of girls, and Sissy Goff will be with us. And then we have Mark Holman.
That's right. And the two of them together, I think, are a powerhouse in family ministry. Sissy has been in the counseling sector. She was part of the incredible episode where we interviewed ministry leaders from the female perspective. She was part of our panel. And so we're going to get a chance to just camp out on a topic with her. And then Mark Holman, Faith at Home, without a doubt, when you study family ministry, Mark Holman's name always comes up. And so this is going to be a power-packed episode that you will not want to miss.
Yes, thanks, guys, for listening. You can go to @RonHunter to see our awesome beards. And while you're there, go ahead and tweet us back and talk to us, or on any social media platform. Just hashtag D6Podcast. And we would love to have that conversation with you and just kind of get to know you a little better. But we hope that you'll be with us next week. And we also hope that you have a great week of ministry.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.